Hola, ¿cómo está? Mi casa es su casa. Today our message is faith and spiritual well-being. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Coastal Regional Outreach Center of the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind. We're focused on bilingual churches, and we're visiting with the pastors of the only bilingual church in our viewing area, Pastor Daniel and Ruth Krawchuck. Good morning, Ruth.
Good
Daniel,
morning.
how
God
exciting
bless you.
and to say the pastors of, and to think about the only bilingual church
Yes.
in our area. You know, with
Yes.
this 10-county area, it's obviously a big area, and to think
Yes.
about y'all's impact not only on Sundays but every day of the week.
Yes.
It's a pretty powerful thing. And I think this past Sunday, y'all just celebrated the first Sunday in the recent past of having 2 services in one day.
Yes, we did our second service at 6 p.m. Sunday afternoon, and again, it was explosive. God was there as always, so it was very exciting. And it was something that was needed for us because of our space and the amount of people that we have. So we had to run into a second service.
Of course, just recently I met you all at the first birthday of a young lady, Melissa
Yes.
Oliveira, which was beautiful.
Yes.
It looks like the Brazilians have very large first birthday parties. There were families up from
Yes.
Florida. There were
Yes.
lots of locals, both Portuguese speaking, Spanish speaking,
Yes.
lots of Anglos at that event at the Canal Street Recreation Center. It's a great, and that was a great place
It was
for
really
a first
nice.
birthday party, wasn't it?
Yes, they did.
awesome.
They did a really nice setup.
It was really, really wonderful. What
Yeah.
about the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind? Had you all been to the Outreach Center here before?
No, this was our first time, and it was quite a blessing, very educational.
It really
Very,
is. It
very.
really
To know the
Yes.
different things that are available out there
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
community, for the
Of
people.
course, they've
yeah.
got a outreach center in the Florence area as well as outreach centers throughout, and then the main school there in
Yes,
Spartanburg.
Spartanburg,
Dorothy
yes.
Bamback was with us earlier this week, and it's been a fascinating week. But I was so fascinated in talking to y'all, and of course hearing you provide grace that afternoon for this young lady celebrating her first birth, or the recognition of her first birthday.
Yes.
To think about, you had done the prayer there in English and Spanish at the same
Yes.
time, as opposed to doing it in English and then in Spanish. And of course, there's churches in the area that may have a service where they'll do it in Spanish for the Spanish speakers, and then maybe a separate service
Exactly.
in
There's
English.
a lot of English-speaking churches that will allow Spanish people to come in and hold their services. We don't do it that way. We're bilingual constantly, back and forth, Spanish and English.
And this is, now, have you all been speaking Spanish for just recently? Did you just learn the language, or is this something that's been with you a little while? Ruth?
Well, my parents came from Brazil,
Is that right?
and I married an Argentinian, and that's how we learned how to speak it. And I guess where we were brought up, it was a bilingual church. So that's how we really kept this with us all this time. It was for a plan and a purpose God had for us.
You said your parents are Brazilian.
Yes.
And that's the native language there is Portuguese.
Yes, it is.
So you're not only, and you speak Spanish as well.
Yes, I do.
So you're trilingual then.
Exactly.
Wow, Ruth.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. And Daniel, now Argentina is...
South America.
That's right. That's Spanish, though, is
That's
their
Spanish.
native language. Do you also
Yes.
know Portuguese?
Very little.
Very little. Oh, so you have to turn
Sticking
your
around
wife
with
for
my
that.
wife, something.
Wow,
Yes.
I like that. Your
Yeah.
wife's trilingual, you're bilingual, and,
Yes.
and you all have children, am I correct?
We have 3. We have Christina, who's married, Stephen, and then Lauren, who is also married.
Expecting our first grandbaby.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow. Now, are your children, do they speak English only, or do they...
No, they speak Spanish also.
Actually, the girls are trilingual.
Oh, come
The
on.
girls are trilingual.
So y'all team up on poor Daniel here at times.
Kind of,
and
yeah.
do some Portuguese speaking when your husband can't.
And Stephen runs out of the house when that happens.
I bet he does. I bet he does.
Yes.
How exciting. Are your children involved in the ministry at all?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
They are.
Christina is the secretary for the corporation.
Oh, great.
We have the church corporation. We have the ministry corporation. We have churches worldwide. We cover over 100 pastors in Honduras, in Central America.
In Honduras alone.
In Honduras alone.
Wow.
In Honduras, we go overseas at least once a year to that country. We hold massive crusades. The last one was last February, where we had several thousand people that came in, and we also have feeding centers there. We have two feeding centers 4 hours apart from each other that we started from here. It was birthed here, and we have ministers that are running it there. They feed over 150 children a week.
No.
Yes.
Now, is this all under the Tabernacle of Meetings?
All under
Yes.
the Tabernacle.
Son of a gun. That's
Yes.
tremendous.
And the
So-
children, excuse me,
Yeah.
the children, we get them from the streets that don't have anything. And what we do is, as we get them down and feed the children, there's once a month for only $26. You get a container and they put in their Kool-Aid to deworm the children, because the water and the circumstances around them are so bad that they don't have this for their health. So you could see the malnutrition in their hair and how it's falling out. And you know, if you're sitting at a table and you're feeding the children, you see them with their little containers on their lap and just scooting it in so they can take it home, to the siblings at home. So it's very heartbreaking.
I bet that is very powerful.
That's what really moved us to do something more than just maybe once a month or every 6 months what they were doing. And we said, we need to do something about this, and we started to feed these children once a week, and the funds are being sent to Honduras. Also Mexico.
Is that right?
Also
Okay.
Mexico. We just finished building our first church in Mexico.
Is that?
It took us a little over a year. We did it with one of our ordained ministers from here, from our church, who went there. And now we're starting on our second one. The first one has overgrown itself, and we're starting into a second area, into Mexico.
How exciting, Daniel.
It is very exciting.
I bet that is.
It
Well,
is
real
very
quick, if a viewer needs to get off to work now or get family off to school,
Yes.
I want to make sure we know exactly where the church is located. And of course, as I said, to have seen the amazing amount of both native English speakers as well as non-English speakers at that birthday party, which was a
Yes.
small representation, I'm sure, of
Yes.
your church crowd, where lots of other friends and family, but to see lots of different people that are absolutely dedicated to your church there.
Yes.
If a viewer was to call or wanted to pop by, what's the best phone number and even the location there?
The location is 212 North Kings Highway
Okay.
and 3rd Avenue North.
Right.
We're in the heart of Myrtle Beach.
Absolutely.
We are about to open up our second facility in Surfside, which later on we'll talk about.
Sure.
But right now we're there, and our telephone number is 448-4070.
Okay, 843-448-4070.
70.
And I'm sure with a setting like that, you probably have folks of interest throughout our viewing area who are
Yes.
willing to come down from Florence or Lumberton or Laurinburg, all over the PD for a situation like this, particularly it not be, obviously you all, it's tough to read folks as what they look like. And I mean, if someone bumped into at Food Lion, they may not think you're trilingual.
Right.
Much like if they bumped into Dorothy Bamback, who was with us earlier this week, they wouldn't know that she was a proficient signer, a sign language, speaking with sign language there. And yourself, Daniel, I'm sure, do you get that at times? That they're,
All the time.
as they're fascinated, as they're see you walking by on a cell phone talking
in Spanish.
In Spanish,
We'll-
yeah.
they'll get
Look
a
at that
quick-
guy, not that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
And probably you as well, Ruth.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And you're talking about the school here, and it just dawned on me that we have the dancers, Carrie Johnson and her daughter, that do the dances, and they do the sign language dancing.
Yes,
And
they
this
do.
was just so together. It's amazing. It's amazing how things get
We
God
have a
does
dance
things.
team at the church.
Oh, you all do?
Do.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and when they do their dance, they do the sign language with it.
Is that right?
Yes.
You know, Dorothy was highlighting about Marley Matlin,
Right.
Yes.
and her performance in Dancing with the Stars, which is on a different network, but still a very popular show on
Yes.
ABC. And obviously her situation there, and
Right.
being hearing impaired, clearly something she had to overcome, and hasn't slowed her down one iota.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sure yours as well. Y'all's background in the ministry, what had prompted going into the ministry, Daniel? Was that at an early age? Was that a love of God? When did you actually meet
there
Christ?
was always I believe a calling on my life from an early age. From about 8 years old, I used to my father bought me a guitar, and I just started to string on the guitar and just write songs. And every song that I used to write as a child, was always about God, about about the Lord, and my life, as many, went down the wrong path. But when there's a divine purpose, when God has a calling on your life, He will only let you go so far, and then He'll bring you right back to the right path. And that's what happened with me. And I started in ministry approximately 23 years ago.
Is that right?
Yes.
As a child?
Yes, almost as a child.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
kidding. I'm sorry.
And we worked with some big ministries, and then the Lord just took us onto our own, and the Lord has just been so good. And as of 8 years ago, He called us out of the church that we were in, and it says, this is not God. We were in television, we were in Univision, Galavision, we had full-time radio, just...
That's all Spanish speaking?
No.
That was all?
No, Spanish and English.
And English also?
Spanish and English, yes.
Yeah.
And a big sized church.
Right.
And the Lord said, it's time to move. And I says, no, it can't be God speaking. This is not God. Look at it. Yes, exactly. Look at everything that God is doing. But then there were signs and confirmations. So we came down to Myrtle Beach, and God has us where He wants us for this time, and tremendous things are happening. Truly, God has been moving in a tremendous way. I believe we're living in the last days, and there's a prophetic move of God that's happening in the church in these last days. If we could go back to the Old Testament, where God said to Moses, use the rod, and I will part the sea. But when Joshua was about to enter into the promised land, He says, Joshua, speak to the water, and I will move through your words. Those were prophetic words that Joshua was speaking, and God moved through those words. If we could go back again, the disciple says, Lord, teach us how to pray. And Jesus taught them how to pray. And then they said, now we want you to show us how the miracles work. Jesus showed them. But in the New Testament, in Matthew, they said, Lord, prophesy to us. Teach us. Now teach us, show us, and prophesy. And the prophetic move is in the church.
I think across the board, not just the Tabernacle of meetings, you mean in churches throughout the country?
I believe in a lot of the churches.
Right.
In a lot of the churches. Many of the churches, yes. The healings are in numbers, in greater numbers. And there's many that don't follow that, but we do. We believe that God still heals today, and we see it in our services. I see it when I go overseas. I see the lame walk. I see the blind, how God opens up the eyes from childbirth, and a greater move of these healings are coming into the church now, because man has really gone away from what the Holy Spirit wants to do. And in our church we say the government of man has to move aside.